Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Net. It's the March 22nd, 2024 edition. And this week, it's an episode where we're going to get technical. So we start a new segment called Let's Get Technical. I'm João Tomé, based in Lisbon, Portugal. And with me, I have returning to the show slash podcast, our CTO, John Graham-Cumming. Hello, John. How are you?
Hi, Joel. It's good to see you. Good to hear you. It's strange to be talking to you when we're actually in the same office, but we're in
We
different
are
boxes.
a few meters
Yes,
away from each
it's
other.
like he's over there.
Exactly. But we want to share the screen, so there's advantages in doing
Yes,
it
there
in
is.
this
There
way.
is.
So let's start. Let's get technical. Our new segment with you. This week, what do you want to highlight in terms of technical little things that we want to share about Cloudflare?
Well, I think we should talk about random numbers. I think random numbers are a good subject.
I do like randomness and entropy of sorts.
Yes. And I think it's perhaps not appreciated by many people how important random numbers are to the functioning of the internet. In particular, all the secure connections we make on the internet. So, for example, like the secure connection I'm making with you over Zoom right now, right? Or a secure connection you make to a website. All of those rely on good sources of random numbers. We've talked about random numbers at Cloudflare quite a lot in the past in the context of lava lamps. And so I have a silly website. I'm going to show you the silly website, and then we'll talk about that website. It's called Lava Millions. Let me share my screen. Okay, so this is Lava Millions. And this is a website for picking lottery numbers, in particular for picking the Mega Millions lottery in the US, which has 5 balls and a golden ball at the end. Pick like that. And this website, which you can go to, is all on Cloudflare. It uses Cloudflare Pages for the website itself. Cloudflare Pages functions for the dynamic part of it, which is picking the balls. And it gets random numbers from Cloudflare's entropy system, in particular from lava lamps. Now, we've actually extended beyond lava lamps now, but I think we're best known for our lava lamp random number generator. And so this website will get you a new set of numbers. So every time you hit refresh, you get a new set of lava lamp chosen Mega Millions numbers. This won't make you win anymore than making any other random numbers, but hey, they're picked by lava lamps. So there we go.
They're pretty random. So we had during Security Week a blog post that updated a bit some information about the randomness that we use in different offices. So you mentioned the lava lamps wall that we have in San Francisco, but there's also in Austin we have like suspended rainbows. In London we have double pendulums, a wall full of double pendulums, and in Lisbon we also have something. Potentially in the future.
And we have a blog post about that. So you're absolutely right. So the original lava lamp wall, which people know fairly well, is still operating in San Francisco. In London, we have these double pendulums, and the reason we use double pendulums is their behavior is chaotic. So unlike a pendulum which swings back and forth very regularly, which is what we wanted to do, if you attach a pendulum to a pendulum, the motion made is chaotic. I cannot be easily predict. I mean, if the starting conditions cause wild changes, and we have a whole wall of them, and we'll get a picture up here and show it in a bit. And then in Austin, we have a thing that's a bit like a mobile, so it's multicolored things hanging from the ceiling, which is affected by air currents and constantly in motion, so giving you something else random. And in Lisbon, it's a bit of a sneak preview. In the new office, we're going to have a wall of waves. So it's actually water, colored water, orange, in plastic containers that rocks back and forth, creating a wave-like motion. And if you're my age, you may remember these were a popular desk toy at some point in the 80s. And so now they're back in the Cloudflare office here. The idea of all of this is all of these things that are moving in this very, very hard to predict way are in front of a camera. And the camera takes a picture periodically. It then takes that picture and what's called hashes it. So it makes a number from the image. And then those numbers are combined together and sent out to our network. And they are used to kick off the process of random number generation on all of our machines in a way that is, well, we hope, impossible to predict. That's the idea.
Hmm.
And we mix in lots of these sources of randomness from different offices and also from the machines themselves, so that when we need to pick a random number, we're able to pick that random number and use it for communication, for a
Hmm.
website, or whatever's going through Cloudflare's network.
You mentioned there something really interesting. First, that's like a news that the Lisbon office will have that specific wall, and it relates to the history of Portugal, like the relation to the sea. Uh, so there's a relation also there. And I remember I was born in the 80s, and I remember those little
Those
things
rocking things. Yeah,
those rocking things.
yeah,
Those were amazing. Even like
yeah,
as a child, you will play with those for a long time.
exactly. And
Uh,
the motion of the water is like this things like that. So we're having some custom made for us, and there's going to be a wall of them. We can actually bring up that blog post. I have it right here if you want to take a quick
sure,
look
sure.
at it. Let me share my screen again. Um, the blog post is called "Harnessing Chaos in Cloudflare Offices," which is a fun title. It's not
It
about
is, yeah.
the chaos of the people, but the chaos of things moving. And so if I scroll down, this is the lava lamp wall in San Francisco with the motion of the lava there. Um, and then in London, we have these double pendulums look like this. You see, they move in this wild fashion. Um, if this at all looks familiar to you, then you have to go watch Iron Man 2 again, because
Oh,
Tony Stark has one of these on his desk, and it's from the same company. And so you can actually buy these. They're just powered by batteries, but their motion is wonderful. And then you can see a whole line of them. And then in Austin we have these mobiles, which are they're taking the light and also the air currents in the room, and they move around again. And we take a photograph of it and we feed it into the system. So if you're interested, you can see what's there, and you can also see how this stuff actually gets mixed together and turned into random numbers that gets sent out to our entire network. And that's our system that we're using, and uh, you can then use that yourself. So there is a thing called the DRAND, which is a distributed source of randomness. There's a whole bunch of companies come together and create a random source, which is something that can be verified that it was who it came from. A thing called the League of Entropy, which has been around now for about 5 years. So if you need random numbers, you can use that. It's verifiable and public randomness.
that's a cool name.
Yeah, it is. The League of Entropy is really good, and there's some really good graphics done by the graphics team here around the League of Entropy. I'm sure we should be able to see that blog post. And this is a collaborative effort around randomness. We're also going to introduce our own endpoint. This has not been released yet for Cloudflare customers. So if Cloudflare customers want to get random numbers from Cloudflare directly, they can through
Hmm.
through the web. And so that will be coming out soon. Because in my Lava Millions website, if we dig into the code, let's just get some random numbers again. There you go. This is the actual code in Lava Millions on my GitHub. It's publicly available.
Hmm.
And I actually call out to a a website csprng.xyz, which is run by was created by a former Cloudflare employee, and it
Hmm.
actually uses the lava lamps to get the random numbers. That's going to get replaced with a Cloudflare owned randomness source, so you'll be able to do this kind of thing yourself. But this is a lovely example of using Cloudflare pages. So the Lava Millions project, which is here, is
Hmm.
is the website you look at, and it is entirely created through Cloudflare Pages, and the main page is through a pages function index.js, which is a little bit like a Cloudflare worker, one of the of code that you can write, but it is attached to a static website, which is through Cloudflare Pages. And so this actually gets executed, and that's actually this code is what's getting executed when I do this and
Hmm.
refresh. So there's the code, and you can have a look at it, and you could make your own version. You will also see that all the images are here. These are all the images of the balls and everything, and those images are on Cloudflare Pages too.
Hmm.
So the whole website is in this one repository. And if I were to make a change here in GitHub, I could do it through the user interface or through command line and push that change to the master branch. Then that would then get automatically built by Cloudflare Pages and pushed out. And it just takes a few seconds. It's incredibly powerful. It's one of my favorite Cloudflare products. And they're all my favorites. It's not like children, right? You can't have a favorite. But Cloudflare Pages is such a slick thing if you're creating a website that consists of static assets and dynamic things. And definitely with Pages functions, it's really, really powerful. So there you go. That's Lava Millions. Now, come on, let's get some more numbers. These are the good ones. Come on.
Maybe we'll add Euro millions for Europe in one of these days.
Europe, yeah, we should have a Euro Lava or something. Yeah, we could. I mean, it would
Exactly.
be quite easy to create. Maybe someone can fork my code and create it.
Lava Euro millions or something. That would be great. More things you want to share. We also had a few blog posts recently with the more technical side. That's actually something very, very frequent in our blog, technical blogs. Anything you want to mention?
There was one that really fascinated me, which is around an attack on AI chatbots.
Hmm.
And um, the reason this really fascinated me is what they do in this AI chatbot thing is that they, um, if you use a chatbot, if you've ever gone to one, when you type stuff in, you get the reply back in a progressive fashion, like
Hmm.
words appear on screen, right? And that's how, these chatbots are working. They're predicting the next word it should say. And you get that sort of, it's almost like it's typing on the other end and words are appearing, right? Well, there's some researchers at Ben Gurion in Israel who worked out that even though they couldn't see what words were being created, if they could sniff on the network, they could look at the network communication. So between you and so suppose you're using ChatGPT, right?
Hmm.
Or in our case, a chatbot on Cloudflare's Workers AI. Suppose you're communicating with that, Joel, and all I can do is I can snoop on your traffic. Or you're in a coffee shop and I'm in the same coffee shop, and I look at the traffic, but I can't decrypt it because it's obviously an encrypted connection.
Hmm.
Because each word is appearing one by one, it's actually possible to see the individual lengths of the packets being sent to your machine.
Hmm.
And then knowing how a chatbot tends to produce its responses, um, what the researchers did was they built their own model of how the chatbot works without ever looking at the decrypted traffic, and were able to predict what you were reading on your screen. And it's a fascinating piece of research because you're actually using, like, as an AI, you're sitting there using an AI, and they're essentially using an AI to predict what the other AI is saying. And one of the reasons I found this super interesting is if you go way, way back to 2004,
Hmm.
so
20
to
years.
20 years ago,
Yeah.
I was working in email spam using what we called machine learning. If I wanted to, I could call it AI now. Um,
True.
and I built this thing which did email classification, did spam filtering by looking at the words in a message and predicting whether it was spam or not. It was quite successful. Open source project, you can still find it. It's called PopFile. And
That's a popular one.
there was a conference at MIT called the MIT Spam Conference. And one of the things that I had done was I'd presented PopFile the years before, and I was like, how it, because it got quite good, because the machine learning spam filters got quite good, I was like, how is someone going to beat them? And I said, well, maybe they're going to use machine learning, we call it AI now, to beat another one. So what I did was I pitted my own program against itself. So
Hmm.
a what I did was I made a program send spam emails, and then on the other side, they got classified by the spam filter, right?
Hmm.
My machine learning thing. And if one got through, then the end user would read that email, right? Because he'd see it because it got
Of
through.
course, yeah.
And you would embed in the email a little signal that goes back to the spammer. So often people do this for marketing purposes, a little hidden image, right? So the spammer could know, this message got through. And what they would do then is say, well, that was this particular message. And it would train its own AI to say, this is the kind of message that gets through. And
Hmm.
by the way, I never heard back about this other message, so that didn't get through. So I trained, basically, it trained a mirror of itself.
Hmm.
And so it could learn for an individual user what words and what to say in an email that will get it through their spam filter. So it was pitting an AI and against an AI.
You were hacking your own system with
Yes,
your
yes.
system in a sense.
Two AI machine learning things talking to
Hmm.
each other. So this thing from Ben Gurion about chatbots, it's a similar kind of thing, right? Which is like they built an AI that could recognize what another AI was saying, and then said, "Well, we can do that." Now, um, they reported it to us and OpenAI and a few other people, and the solution, it turns out, is not very complicated. You just don't leak the information about the lengths of the words, right? So when you're sending a
Mm.
word back, you throw in some extra random data, and
Mm.
then the other end can't tell how long the
Mm.
word was. Because it turns out that if you can see the sequence of words, you can kind of guess what the sentence was, and just by knowing the lengths. So
Mm.
throw in some randomness and it's fixed. So we patched that, we fixed it on all the stuff that uses us. We fixed it on our API gateway, sorry, our AI gateway as well. So if you're using our AI gateway in front of your AI, we will also add randomness, so this can't be a problem. And
Mm.
other providers fixed it too. But it's kind of interesting, my perspective, because I was doing kind of this stuff 20 years ago, but also that AIs pitted against AIs is a thing. And so, I thought that was a fascinating piece of research. And we have a nice blog that goes into a lot of detail about this.
Here's the blog, right? Is this one, right?
That's the one. That's the one.
And it was written by Celso, that is here, also in the Lisbon
Yeah, I
office.
don't know if he's here in the Lisbon office right now, is he?
He is, he is.
He is. Okay, okay. Well, so yeah,
Uh,
so there was the this was a side channel where you could, without being able to do any decryption, you could predict what someone was doing. So
Side channel, yeah. But it's interesting, you mentioned something there that I think is really fascinating, which is uh, even hackers are using old methods, right? Even if it's in a more sophisticated way, there's other things, but there's old methods to mitigate, but also to hack, in a sense, situations, right?
well, this was very clever, right? This was a very clever use of an
Mm.
AI to predict what another AI was doing. And so I think we'll see this kind of like adversarial AIs going up against each other, which will be super interesting.
True.
Yeah, there you go. That was one of those fascinating reports came out over the last few weeks.
Any other blog you want to emphasize? We had an undersea cable failures that
Yes.
brought 13 countries.
Well, you should
Uh,
talk about this because you wrote this. This was
I
really
did.
interesting, right? This is was it off the coast of Côte d'Ivoire? Is that where it was? It was off the
It
coast of,
was.
yeah.
It
And
started actually in the Gambia
right.
country specifically. So it started south of Senegal,
Okay.
and I can actually show on radar uh, in the Outer Center the perspective that shows in Africa the specific countries
Oh, there
where
you
this
go.
happened.
See, there's pretty big out.
Uh, so Senegal is here, so just north of Gambia. So it was after Senegal that this happened. So apparently undersea cables had more than one actually had a few failures, and
More
then it was like 5 a.m. where it started in Gambia, and then it went to Guinea, it went to Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, uh, Ghana, Burkina Faso. So it was in total 13 countries.
yeah.
It went all the way to South Africa also. In South
Right.
Africa was just one network, Vodacom, that was impacted, not the full length of networks in the country. Namibia also. In some situations like South Africa, it was just for a few hours, the outage.
Mm.
In others, which is the case of Cameroon and Ghana, after more than 1 week, it's still impacted in some of those countries. It's Cameroon the case and also
Huh.
Ghana. So it's a good reminder, I think, of how undersea cable failures could have a real impact in country internet in a sense.
And
So
was this made worse because of the cuts around the Red Sea area? Because of
apparent there's not like an official someone putting in official way that happened, but Microsoft, for example, did a report where they consider that could be of influence here. So because there's less redundancy in terms of where could the internet flow
yeah.
or reroute if there's a problems in this case were three undersea cables in the west of
Right.
Africa, because on the east part, on the Red Sea part, there was already problems from a few weeks ago. There was less redundancy, so less ways of traffic to reroute in a sense.
Mm.
So that could be also at play in terms of the impact that this had.
Yeah. Looking at your outage center, it looked like we've got some outages in Ukraine today.
We did, actually. It was by military action, so it affected power stations in the region of Kharkiv, and it was since 3 a.m. this morning that happened specifically. and we had a tweet about it to explain the impact. Apparently, it was like 3 or 4 regions that were impacted. One of those, it's where there's the nuclear power plant,
Yeah.
forget the name of the nuclear power plant. But so this was is still ongoing at this moment.
Hmm.
And there was also a cyber attack last week. But this was a Friday, March 22nd incident that happened
Right.
specifically.
And I think that I think I saw Myanmar as well on that list there somewhere.
Myanmar, I think, yeah, it started last week
So last week, yeah. Right.
regarding maintenance.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
And Philippines also recently, already on Monday,
And that was
was
also a cable cut. Oh yeah.
cable cut for an hour or so.
Yeah. Wow.
So
So
a good
lots.
reminder of the internet. It's needs resilience.
Also a good reminder of all the stuff there is on Cloudflare radar.
True, true. We have a lot. We have a
There's a
lot.
lot of stuff in there. Yeah.
Even recently, we had email security
We
on
added
it.
email security. Yeah. 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 That's a really good thing as well. Yeah. Well, good. It was lovely talking to you. Thanks for having me back on This Week in Net.
Thanks for doing this, and potentially let's do it again in
Yeah.
one
Will.
of future
I
weeks.
will.
One thing before you go, it was last week that was Pi Day. Do you have any story related to Pi Day or to Pi specifically?
So you've touched a difficult subject, right? Which is it's only Pi Day if your dates are American style, right?
Oh, that's right.
Right.
Because
Three
it
on
started
four.
in America
Yeah. So the
specifically
idea
because
is
of that.
so, which a friend I used to work with described the US date system as middle endian, right? We have a lot,
Oh,
big endian and little endian numbers, and the US is middle endian. You have the middle at the beginning. So it is. I mean, I was fascinated by pi when I was at school. Um, and me and another boy decided to memorize it. Um, and I
that's a lot to
memorized it
memorize.
to about 50 decimal places.
Hmm.
Um, and I still use it, or at least I still know it. As like just one of those random things. And occasionally I will, it's a bit like a Rubik's Cube. I can do Rubik's Cube, and occasionally I'll get out a Rubik's Cube and I'll just do it like, oh yes, I can still do it and put it away. Memorizing pi is a bit like that. I'm like, 3.141965358969322384622679502284197169399, and then I think it's 37510. And I'm like, great, I can still remember that. And there's a really lovely website which is how many digits of pi does NASA use for navigation in space? And
Whoa.
and I know it to way more than is necessary to do navigation. In fact, 50 decimal places, if I remember this correctly, is enough to do like measurements and calculations at the size of the observable universe
Is this
down
one?
to, yes, I think that's the one, down to with the accuracy of the size of a hydrogen atom. So it's not that useful. In fact, yeah, here it is. You see, they only use 3.141592653589793. That's enough for interplanetary navigation. So when I learned it to 50 decimal places, it was overkill. But
It's quite fascinating as a concept, a mathematical concept. And of course, it's useful not only in space, but also to the internet, to more small settings in a sense. It's always important in a sense.
well, I'll tell you a funny story about it from a security perspective is that a long time ago, I had a credit card whose PIN number I kept forgetting. And I was like, well, I want to write this PIN number down, but I don't want anyone to know. No, I don't want us to do. So what I did was I had a notebook in which I used to keep notes. And so on one page, I wrote out pi to 50 decimal places. I also wrote out a few other things like e, the square root of 2, stuff like that. So it's like a crazy nerdy page, right?
Hmm.
But because I knew the first 50 decimal places of pi, I made a mistake some way into the expansion where I put the 4-number PIN number of this credit card. And so to me, I could look at it and go, those aren't the 4 digits of pi. That must be my PIN number. And so that was a way of Security's through obscurity a bit, but you would have had to be particularly nerdy to discover the PIN number of that credit card by spotting errors in the expansion of pi.
That's a John Graham-Cumming for sure. Then makes sense. Makes sense. It adds up.
It
This
adds up.
was,
Yeah.
and that's we ended with pi, so that's good. So we
Great.
ended with mathematics, and
There
that's a
you
wrap.
go.
Thank you, John.
Cheers. See you out. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Hi, I'm Ryan, and I'm a community manager here at Cloudflare, based in San Jose in the United States. And here are some of the recent social highlights that we wanted to share with you. Up first, there was a site operator not using Cloudflare who incurred a whopping $100,000 bill for their static site. Their Reddit post generated more than 1,000 comments and 8,000 upvotes, with many of them suggesting Cloudflare as an alternative. On the bright side, they've already updated that they've learned their lesson and have migrated to Cloudflare. News of that horrible billing experience spread to X, where Nixcraft commented that if you want to avoid billing surprises, always hide your site behind Cloudflare. We agree. Good tip. Still in the realm of avoiding billing surprises, a developer's post on X highlighted the importance of easy-to-understand pricing, stating, quote, "It's impressive how easy and straightforward it is to understand the pricing for Cloudflare workers compared to AWS Lambda." I think that's correct. We received some great responses from Security Week announcements, one of them being the new firewall for AI. Developer and influencer Levels.io amplified the news to his 400,000 plus followers, including another comment about billing. Seems that there's a bit of a theme here. That being said, not everyone is always focused on billing. One of the most common things we see on social is excitement about how easy Cloudflare products are to deploy. Under an hour is a pretty common proclamation with a lot of our different products. Here we've got someone who's clearly excited that we are open sourcing our Rust framework Pingora, which if you didn't know is used for building programmable network services. One of the other areas that we see a lot of activity around is observations from Cloudflare Radar. A recent blog post about cable failures in Africa even caught the attention of BBC Africa, and they went on to write about it. And last but not least, some chatter around our Zaraz product and how it brings one solution for all types of third-party tools. Remkus de Vrij, a WordPress veteran and performance specialist, made a tutorial about it. And that's it for this round of Social Love. See you next time.
So before we go, let's share some recent Cloudflare news from the week. Let's start with our blog. On Wednesday, we announced that we introduced Warp Connector. So in a sense, it's for Zero Trust administrators to deploy our new Warp Connector for simplified any-to-any connectivity. We also discussed hardware, in this case redefining fleet management at Cloudflare, all about processes around service provisioning, maintenance windows, repairs, and diagnostics reporting were reaching their limits. So we had some solutions there. We already mentioned the undersea cable failures cause internet disruptions for multiple. We also explained the impact for Cloudflare users regarding the upcoming Let's Encrypt certificate chain change. So stay tuned there. And also we have the Security Week 2024 wrap-up for those who want to see all of the blog posts that were published during our Security Week on the different topics at hand. On other news, Cloudflare was named a strong performer in the Forest Wave, the security service edge solution specifically, regarding Q1 2024. There's a download that could be made of that report if you want to see details there. And also this announcement, Kendrill and Cloudflare announced global strategic alliance to drive enterprise network transformation, multi-cloud innovation, and zero trust security. So this is an alliance to focus on modernizing IT infrastructures by streamlining connectivity to multiple clouds and data centers. Before we go, there's still a small teaser with a conversation I had with our very own engineer of the research team, Thibaut Meunier. So here's Thibaut.
Hi everyone, I'm Thibaut, working at Cloudflare as a research engineer based out of France. And in the next episode of Cloudflare Research Corner, we're discussing how Cloudflare is working towards making an end to CAPTCHAs. If you don't know if you've ever clicked buses, if you've clicked fire hydrant, well, CAPTCHAs is probably what you did. And Cloudflare is definitely working to make an end to this madness. And one of the ways to do that is with Privacy Pass. It's a privacy-preserving protocol that will allow you to go through CAPTCHAs without revealing much information about yourself. To understand more deeply how it works, you can listen to the research corner that will happen.